My family and I have attended Genesis since day one. We were wanting to be a part of a church that we believe captured the heart of God. And in our opinion, that was to bring the unchurched and the broken into a building and introduce them to Jesus. Not that there's anything wrong with people coming from other churches, and you can grow churches like that, but there are a ton of churches out there, and we just really felt like we wanted people that didn't know Him to be the top priority.
I was raised in church. I'm actually the son of a preacher. My dad's a pastor. And so, being raised in church, I've been in that environment my whole life and didn't always have a perspective of what it might be like to come to church if I'd never been. Being someone that maybe was unchurched and just showing up for the first time, I never had that experience. So not having that experience, didn't give it a whole lot of thought. Just that was the environment I was raised in. As I became an adult and I started moving all over the country, traveling, got to visit a lot of different churches, it occurred to me about 3 years ago, it began to kind of seep into my spirit that I began to think about church in a different way. I began to think about what would it be like if I had never been to church, if I didn't know anything about it, and I was going to show up for the first time. And I came in the doors, what would that look like? That began to kind of color my whole perspective of church.
I feel like Brian has really captured that and tried to sew that into this ministry. It's been a long journey for 3 years. We've seen a lot of exciting things. But this next step, as he's calling the empty chair, we feel is very important. And the reason being is, when me and you go to shop at Walmart to get our groceries, it can be crowded and it's kind of a pain, but it's very non-personal. We really don't have relationships with those people that we're bumping into. And there's really not anything real super personal about it. But when you go to church and you're trying to worship, when it's a packed house and you're, shoulder to shoulder with people that you don't know, it's really hard to let your guard down. It's really hard to open up and worship if you're not used to that. It's really hard to let a stranger that you have never met possibly see a soft side of you or a broken side of you, or to let the Holy Spirit really do what it wants to do in your life. And although we should be able to do that, for new people, for unchurched people, it's a very uncomfortable thing.
So when we showed up at Genesis the first Sunday, the first thing we noticed was that it was very warm, very welcoming. People were right up front, ready to receive us and talk to us. They didn't know my background. They didn't know our background. They didn't know whether we'd been in church for 40 years or whether we had just showed up the first time. They received us very warmly. Once we got into the service, it was structured really well, I felt like, for to be able to follow along. Brian Ramey stood up there and preached, and I remember something that really struck me in that first service is he said, and I couldn't tell you the book, but he said, for example, let's turn to Exodus. If you're new to church, Exodus is the second book in the Bible near the front. And I thought, wow, when you're preaching to a crowd that's been there for years and years and years, you don't have to explain where Exodus is at. As a matter of fact, you wouldn't explain where Exodus was at. That really struck me. I thought, wow, Genesis makes it very easy for someone to come in off the street for the first time and not feel uncomfortable to have this giant book that has all these books in it and go find Habakkuk. What? He actually stood there and told it. That made an impression on me. It sounds odd, but that was a turning point for me in that service. I said, wow, here's a church that gets it. I am so excited about this empty chair, about the empty chair concept. I think it's going to be a great way for every person at Genesis to plug in to what the church is doing and the mission focus of the church. The empty chair is more, to me, than just something we're doing internally. It really has an external impact into the community. The vision of the empty chair is that we are going to create space, and as Brian has said, margin, so that we can make available more space to bring in more folks to Genesis.
We want them to feel welcome, and we want them to feel like it's a safe place and a private place to a certain extent. So this program will hopefully help us do that. to increase our size of our facilities, to facilitate more people coming in, so that we can do exactly what we feel like God has called the church to do, and that is to reach the unchurched.
And as people that are here already, as church owners, this is something very simple we can do. Sometimes it's not so easy to walk up to your coworker and say, "Hey, would you come to church with me?" We all should do that, and I hope we are doing that. But that may not be the easiest thing to do. But how simple is it to simply say, "Yes, I'm going to sponsor a chair. Yes, I'm going to back this 2-service model so that we can open up space." And then that's step 1. Step 2 is, now that the space is open, invite somebody to church. We've got room. There's room for everyone here. I've found in the time that I've been here, it was very inviting when I came in. I find that when I invite people into Genesis, they feel very safe and secure coming. Very seldom have I invited somebody that hasn't come back.
I think walking in as a new person to a new environment, especially church for us, since we hadn't gone to church, being in the new environment, not knowing the people, and coming in the first day with our kids, trying to get them encouraged to go to a new place, and then same thing with us. The encouragement of people when you walked in and spoke with them, everybody came up to you and greeted themselves. The pastor's standing there and speaks with you, greets you. So that made us feel really at home, very welcomed.
I remember getting in the car after the first service, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. Our kids really seemed to have fun. I left actually getting the message that Brian had, said that day. And I've been to church before, when I was younger, and you leave and you're like, I don't know what that was about or anything. And I left he impacted something in my life that, has happened with us, not just, other things. I think it's impacted our family as a whole. Our kids go to Awanas on Wednesdays, and they're excited to go. They don't cry when we drop them off, and half the time I can't get them to come with me when it's time to go home. And we come home and they want to pray before bed, and we used to not do that, and so that's something big. Peyton's got several Bible verses memorized, and she's doing really well.
So I'm very excited about the empty chair vision. I believe it's going to be the next step at Genesis. I think Genesis has done really well since its inception 3 years ago. We've been here just about a year, my family. We've seen great things in the year we've been here. I think the empty chair is probably going to be the vision that takes Genesis literally to the next level. But it's going to require each and every one of us at Genesis to open our mind, open our hearts, and support this vision. And if we do that, I think God's going to do amazing things at Genesis in 2015. I see the mission of Genesis is to create an atmosphere on Sunday mornings that we can reach the unbelievers. It's great to come here and hang out with all of our friends and that good stuff. Everybody likes doing that. I do too. You get to see people that maybe you haven't seen all week. You show up, here they are. But we can never forget that our main mission on Sunday morning is to reach the unbeliever, to set the service around unbelievers so that when they come in the door, they can meet God. And it may be their first time, it may be their 100th time, but we need to create that atmosphere. And so we have a responsibility at Genesis as the body of the church to each one of us to help create that atmosphere. That's why the Dream Team is so important. If you're here, I believe you should be a part. Sunday mornings at Genesis are focused on the unbeliever walking in the door. That's what we are about. Each and every one of us have a responsibility to that person coming in the door. I feel like Genesis does a great job currently going to 2 services. That mission is going to grow even that much more. And I would challenge anybody at Genesis right now to be involved. Sunday morning is about getting people to have a face-to-face encounter with God. That's why another thing I love about Genesis are our connect groups. Throughout the week, we get to meet different places, different times on different topics, and we get to see those people that maybe we don't see as often as we would like, But I see the Connect group to be a real great way to plug into the church on a deeper level. And that is time where you can spend with maybe your friends and whatnot that you don't see throughout the week, which gives us time on Sunday morning to be very outwardly focused. Instead of being an inwardly focused church, we can be an outwardly focused church. And we can really reach out locally to meet those people and those faces that are coming in the door every Sunday morning.
By increasing the space in the church, you also increase the opportunity for ministry. When you only have a small footprint, there's only so many things that you can do and offer, only so many people that you can reach. But if we can create more space, we can have more classes for the children. We can have bigger classes to facilitate more people. But obviously, the bigger the campus gets, the more opportunity there is for different ministries at different levels, so that we can meet people where they are and where they need us to be for them.